And today's daf Yomi is daf Moed Katan, daf Yud Ches 18, and we'd like to acknowledge that we're studying today in the memory of the Yortzeit of Sarah Bat David, Sadie Gold, and we thank Wendy and Desmond for sponsoring the Torah in memory of her Yortzeit, and also all the Torah this week is studied in memory of Goldie Miriam Bat Rav Avram Chaim, and we thank Steve and Siona for sponsoring the Torah this week in memory of Goldie Miriam. So Batarav Avram Chaim. So today's daf Yomi is Moed Katan Yud Chet, and we're now studying Elu Megalchin, all the laws of mourning, and so we're going to have a lot of the laws of mourning over the next 2 weeks. A lot of the laws of mourning, they come from this chapter called Elu Megalchin, and so we have just established that the laws like Shmuel. That Shmuel says the law is like the lenient one when it comes to a mourner. So we're on the third line of 18a in Moed Katan, 18a. So Achua Demar Shmuel, so the brother of Shmuel, Isra Be Milsa, something bad happened to him. The Rashi says that what happened to him was that what happened to him was that his child had died. So all Shmuel and Mishal. So Shmuel went to pay a shiva visit. He saw that his brother's nails were growing long. So he says to his brother, why didn't you cut your nails? Because Shmuel himself said that you're allowed to cut your nails, because he ruled like Rabbi Yossi that you're allowed to cut your nails on when you're sitting shiva, because the law is like the lenient one. So Shmuel's brother said to him, he said to him, and he doesn't tell us the tone in which he used, but presumably he used in a very soft tone because it was his brother. He said, he said, if you were sitting shiva, would you go so far as to cut your nails? You wouldn't do it. Don't tell me to do it. I know the law is like the lenient one when it comes to shiva, but I can't do it. It's too much for me. But he shouldn't have spoken like that, because it was like we say in the book of Koheles, even though it was a mistake, it went out from the mouth of the ruler. Whatever goes out is going to be applied, and so therefore, Rahman al-Atzlan, what he said came true, because Isra Be Milsa B'Shmuel, and Shmuel himself then had the same thing happen to him. He was sitting shiva for his child. So Al Pinchas Achua Mishal Taima. So Pinchas, his brother, went up to pay him a shiva visit to Shmuel. So Shaklinu Tufrei, Shmuel took his fingernails, Chavtinu and he cut his nails, and he threw them on the ground in front of his brother Pinchas. And Amar Leislecha bris krusa l'sfasayim. Don't you know this idea that there's a bris krusa, that there's a covenant with our lips, meaning to say whatever we say comes true. You speak it into existence. And Rashi says this is the idea if we learn from the Akedah, because Avram said, and that's what happened, that they both returned. And if you say something, it will come true. There's another concept about this Tosfos points out. It's called Al Tiftach Pelas Satan. Don't give the Satan any ideas by making any suggestions for Satan. So because Shmuel's brother had said, if you were sitting shiva, this would happen. That's why Shmuel said, that's why I'm sitting shiva. How do we know that there's a covenant with the lips, whatever the lips say? Because it says, Abraham said to his lads, you stay here with the donkey, and I'll return. I'll go. We'll go. I'll go with the boy. And we'll return to you. Now, and that indeed it happened that both of them returned. To me, it's a strange example to me, because first of all, Avram is Avram Avinu, and his words presumably carry more weight than everybody else's. And second of all, there Abraham was saying a prophecy that for good will return. We're not going to do the sacrifice, but still, the rabbis of the Gemara are saying, be very careful what you say. Savar minei, so the yad in the regalo. So the Gemara says the people, when they heard Shmuel's psak that you're allowed to cut your nails on your shiva, they assumed, you can cut your fingernails but not your toenails. So Amar Avanan Bar Tachlifa L'Didim Mifarshli Minei de Shmuel Lo Shna de Yad Lo Shna de Regel. He said, no, actually, I had heard a teaching from Shmuel. Doesn't matter if it's the hand or the foot, you're allowed. And Amar Rav Barashi Amarav Ubegenustera Asur. With a genustera was a. It sounds like it was a special. Rashi says misbarayim. It's a scissors. It sounds like it was a nail cutter. But you can't do it. You have to do it with like a unusual instrument or unusual manner. Not typically the way you cut nails. So even though you're allowed to cut the nails, you have to do with a change. I was once standing in front of Rabbi Yochanan in the base Medrash Achal Moed. He took the nails with his teeth, vizarkinu, and he threw them. So we learned from this incident that he threw them out. So we learned from this incident that of what Rabbi Yochanan did. We learned several things. What do we learn from this? We learned, first of all, Shema Mina Tlas. We learned three things. Shema Mina Mutar, we told Tzipor Narim B'chol Shema. We see from what Rabbi Yochanan did, you're allowed to cut your nails on Chol Moed. That's the first thing. The second thing, Shema Mina Ein B'hem Misham Mius. It's not going to be considered disgusting. Meaning nails are not disgusting because he cut them with his teeth. And the third thing is Shema Mina Mutar Zarkan. We learned you're allowed to throw them. You're allowed to throw them out. You're allowed to throw them. So, so what do we see from this? The Gemara says, Aini, is this really the case that you're allowed to do this? That you're allowed to throw your nails? There are three things that are said about nails. One, hakovran tzaddik. If you bury the nails, you're a tzaddik. Hasarfan, if you burn them, even better. Chassid, you're pious. Zarkan, if you just throw them to the ground, Rasha, you're wicked. Time of Mai, Shema Tavor Aleyan Isha Ubra Vitapil Isha. Shema Tavor and Isha Ubra Vitapil. So he says, why can't you just throw them? We're worried a woman is going to pass by them and have a miscarriage. So most say that this is just Kabbalah. That the nails represent, let's say, the Sitra Achra, they represent evil or bad forces. Therefore, you have to be careful not to walk on them. That's why people are very careful to take the nails and dispose of them in a very clean way or throw them down the toilet. But some say that this was because the nails were just so dirty, it represented disease, and it was a very good way to catch a disease from the nails. In any event, he said, well, how could Rabbi Yochanan throw them? He said, Isha be midrash or shlicha. The women in those days were not common in the base medrash. They didn't yet see Yeshiva Selimelch's base medrash. But in those days, the women were not very common in the base medrash, and so therefore they felt that it was okay to throw the nails. And if you want to say, well, sometimes they're going to gather up the nails and toss them outside, it's not going to be a problem. Because since they changed from the place from where they originally were, they're no longer a threat. Okay. Amar Rav Yehuda Marav Zug Ba Mechamtan Lefnei. So Zug Ba Mechamtan Lefnei Rebbe Umarzutra Masli. As Zug Ba Mechamatan Lefnei Rebbe Uvakshu Mimenu Tziparnayim. So there was a pair of people. We don't know the different versions of how they did, and they asked Rebbe, "What's the law with nails when you're a mourner? Can you cut your nails?" Rebbe said you could cut your nails. And we saw from the way Rebbe answered that question, in Bikshu Mimenu Safa, if they would ask Rebbe if you could trim your mustache, that he would have also allowed it to them. Shmuel Amar, and Shmuel actually said, in Bikshu Mimenu Safa, if they would have asked Rebbe, can you trim your mustache while you're a mourner, he would have allowed it. Amar Avitol Safra, Avitol the scribe said, Mishmei Derav, Papa, Safa Mizavis Lazavis. And when you're a mourner, you could cut the mustache from one corner to the other. And the reason is because if you have a mustache, a bushy mustache, it's really annoying to eat with. And it gets in your way of your food. That's why we call the mustache the flavor savers, right? They save the food in your teeth, in your hair. This is only about a mustache that makes it difficult to eat with. And my mustache or for me, because I'm very picky, I'm finicky. Kisafa amakevestamili. And I can shave all the hair of my mustache because all the hair of my mustache is like preventing me from eating properly. So once we cite an unusual rabbi, we're going to go just say whatever other teachings we have from him. So Avitul Safra said the name of Rav Papa, Paro, Shahaya B'mei Moshe. Paro was like a common name for an Egyptian king. So the Pharaoh in the time of Moses, he was one amma tall. Okay, he was one amma tall. And also we know about him that Uzikano amma, his beard was an amma, Ufarmashtiko ama vazeris, but his male member was an amma and a half. I will put on top of you lowly people who are not worthy. I mean, what's the significance of them saying that Paro was an amma long and his amma was and his parmashtiko, his male genitalia was an arm and a half? It's trying to tell us that this Paro was, his whole being was sexuality, that it was the most dominant aspect of him. And that was not a compliment. So that's what they're trying to make that point. So Paro was an Amgushi. The Gemara was an Amgushi. The Gemara in Shabbos records a dispute about what an Amgushi was between Rav and Shmuel. One says it means he was a magician, and one says it means he was somebody who cursed God. So Paro was an Amgushi, but here it means he was a magician because he went out to the water to engage in magic. So now we learned in our mission, these are the people who wash their clothing on Chol Moed, one who comes from overseas, and presumably also during their day stage in the morning. Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rav Yochanan, somebody who only has one shirt, you can wash it during Chol Moed. You can wash it because even if you had washed it prior to the festival, you would still need to wash it again. So Masav Rabbi Yirmiyah challenges this because we learned in our Mishnah, it lists the people who have the exceptional right to wash their clothing on Chol Moed, and it doesn't list somebody who only has one shirt, which means Hani in, Misha Ein Lo Hani in. But Misha Ein Lo El Chol Kachad Lo. These people can wash it, but not people who only have one shirt. So Amrullah Rabbi Yaakov, Rabbi Yirmiyah Azbrolach, Masnisin Afagav the Islay Trey Umetafi. No, our Mishnah is saying that even if you have two shirts, and both of them are dirty, that other people who have two shirts, they wouldn't allow to do it because they want them to wash it for Chol Moed. But these people are listed in the Mishnah because they have extenuating circumstances. They're allowed to wash it even though they had have more than one shirt. So Shalach Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Guri Mishmei Rabbi Yochanan Kli Pishtan Muto Chav Simachol Shemod. If you have Kli Pishtan is linen or a linen clothing, you can wash it on Chol Moed because presumably it wasn't such a big deal to wash the linen. It was much easier. And also another reason that's given is because the linen clothing gets dirty quicker. So Masav Rava challenges this. It says this is what you can wash. Mitpachos hayadayim. You can wash your hand towels, mitpachos hasaparim, and your barbership towels, or whatever, or maybe your book towels. That's not clear. Hani and kli pishtin lo, which means not linen. Linen doesn't have a special exemption. We're on top of 18b. So Amoy Abaya Masnisin Afilu Desharmine. No, our Mishnah is referring to even of when it says the hand towels and the saparim towels, the barber towels, it's even from other material. Amar Bar Hidyo, L'didi Chazili Yamashal Tveri, he said, I once saw the Kinneret, the Yamashal Tveri, the Sea of Tiberias, the Mafkile Mishichle Demani Kitna B'chol Demoed. He said, I once saw this, that they used to take out buckets filled with linen clothing, or they would take to there buckets filled with linen clothing on Chol Moed to wash them. So you see, you're allowed to wash it. Abaye, yeah, Abaye says that's not a proof that you're allowed to wash it. He says, Man leimolan b'ratzon chachamim avdi. How do you know that they were doing it with permission? They're just doing it on their own. Maybe they're just doing it on their own. You don't know that was sanctioned. Okay, so now the very interesting Mishnah coming up. Elu kosvin b'moed. These are the people who are allowed to write on Chol Moed. Kiddushei nashim. If a person wanted to betroth a wife, a woman, he went to betroth her. We'd already learned that you're not going to get fully married on Chol Moed, and the reason is because Ema Arvin Simcha, you can't bring two joys together. But there were two aspects to the wedding: the kiddushin and the nisuin. The kiddushin is the betrothal, a formal process of betrothing, which you were not allowed to live together, but you would require a divorce to separate. And then there would be the nisuin, which is chuppah and living together in the home. So you're not allowed. So generally speaking, can't write on Chol Moed, but kiddushay nashem. But the betrothals of the woman, to betroth the woman, and you could do that through money, but let's say you don't have money, you want to do it through a contract, that's okay. V'gitin and a divorce, v'shovrin, a shovrin is a receipt that you paid the debt that you're owed, and also daitiki is a will, or matana, or a gift that you're giving, promising somebody a gift. Pruzbulin is a loan in the sabbatical year. And you want to make sure that when the sabbatical year comes, it doesn't cancel the loans. So you do a pruzbul. That was a way to make sure the loans weren't canceled. And Igaros Shum, and Igaros Shum was a letter that was put out by the court, that the court evaluated this field, and they divide up amongst the brothers, and each one got a certain amount. And Igaros Mazon, this is where a person accepted upon himself to support the daughter of his wife with such and such amount of money. Shtarek Chalitza. These are different forms of terminating a marriage. Chalitza is when a widow does not marry her brother-in-law, so she spits on the floor in front of him. So you need to have a contract that she did that. This is when a girl refuses a marriage that was arranged by her mother and her brother after her father died. Ushtar birurin, and shtari birurin, meaning say when the court writes a contract or a document that they are dividing up the inheritance between different people, and gezeros bezdin, and the rulings of the court, v'igros shavrashus. Igros shavrashus. So most people translate it as the letters that were written to the government or by the government. Some translate it as rashus with optional letters, discretionary letters. So Amar Shmuel taught, Mutar la'ares isha b'chol shemoed. You're allowed to betroth the woman on Chol Moed. What's the reason? Because if you don't betroth her, Shama yikadmenu acher. We're worried somebody else is going to marry her. Somebody else is going to jump the line and marry her. So how's that possible? Lame and Messiah. Let's bring proof for this. El kosem b'moed kiddushin nashim. You're allowed to do the kiddushin. Ma'alav shtar kiddushin namish. Doesn't that mean that you're allowed to write this document of betrothal? The Gemara says, no, it doesn't mean that. That's not what it's referring to. What it's referring to is shtare psikta. These are it's not the actual betrothal document, but this is the terms of the marriage. That's what it's really referring to. The terms of the marriage. Yeah, how much you're going to give. How much you're giving for your son? How much you're giving your daughter? Each one has to decide. And he said, Amdu v'kitshu kanu, and they stood up, and once they wrote that down, and then they did a betrothal. These are words that these are things that can be just acquired just by speaking, even though they didn't do a formal kinyan. So Lema Messiah, let us bring a proof for this idea for Shmuel's idea that you're allowed to betroth the woman on Chol Moed, because otherwise maybe somebody else will come along first and want to marry her. So we had said the Mishnah, when it says Kiddushay Nashim, it doesn't mean betrothal. It means, according to this approach of the Gemara, it means the terms relating to the betrothal. That's what you can write down. But let's bring a proof for Shmuel's statement, which can be understood independent of the Mishnah, that a person is allowed to betroth someone on Chol Moed. Because why? It says, Ein nosin nashim b'moed. You're not allowed to marry on Chol Moed. Lo besuos, so Almon is not a virgin or a widow. V'lo miyamin, and you're not allowed to do yibum, which is where the where the brother-in-law marries his widow, his brother's widow, because it's too rejoicing, which means shari. So just to betroth her would be permitted. So the Gemara says, no, you can't bring a proof from there. Lo mi bai kamer. It's a lo mi bai statement. Lo mi bai la'ares, to look off a mitzvah, not only to betroth. So the way we have to understand this is as follows. We have to understand it. We have to understand it as lo mi bai kamer, meaning to say lo mi bai la'ares, not only to betroth, to lo ka'avim mitzvah. Not only to betroth that where you're not doing a mitzvah, but even to get married, the ka'avin mitzvah, where you're doing a mitzvah, is aser. It's going to be prohibited. So maybe it means it's not necessarily a proof, because maybe all it's saying there is not, you don't have to read it as saying that you're allowed to get betrothed. Maybe it's saying you can't get betrothed. Not only are you not allowed to get betrothed, which is not even a mitzvah to get betrothed, but even to get married, which is a mitzvah. You see from here that getting married is a mitzvah. What's the mitzvah in getting married? What's the mitzvah? So my Rabbi Shimon Ram, he bless his memory, he told me once that it's from the verse. So viral sorry, even if there are no children involved, that you're settling the world. So that's the concept of marriage, and so that's based upon that. Tashma. So the Gemara says, let's bring a proof for Shmuel that you're allowed to get betrothed on Chol Moed. The time Shmuel ma'arsin of a low konsin, because they taught in the academy of Shmuel that you can betroth a woman on Chol Moed, but you cannot fully marry her. And even though you're allowed to betroth her on Chol Moed, nevertheless, ein osin sudas erusin v'lo miyamnim shnesh simcha elo shma mina. So we say a specific source. He says you're allowed to betroth, but you're not allowed to get married, and you don't do a sudas erusin. You don't do a full party on Chol Moed, because that's too rejoicing. But you also can't do miyamim yibum. That's considered too much joy. But we see from here a good proof that to support Shmuel's statement, because this is a brisa, that indeed you're allowed to get married, betrothed on Chol Moed. So the Gemara says, wait 1 second. Umi Amar Shmuel Shema Yikad Manu Achar. How could Shmuel say that the reason why you can get married is because if you don't marry, if you don't get betrothed on Chol Moed, then what's happening is somebody else is going to come first and marry her. That you don't have to worry about that. Amar Yehuda Amar Shmuel. This is what Shmuel also said. We call Yom v'Yom every single day. Baskol Yotzi, a heavenly voice comes out, Zomeris, and the heavenly voice says, Bas Poni Luponi, stay Poni Luponi. Every day there's a heavenly voice that comes out and says, this person is marrying this person, this field is going in this field. So we know exactly who's going to marry whom. It doesn't matter. You don't have to worry this guy's going to come first. You can just sit on the side of the dance floor and let the other person dance. You don't have to be worried. You're already destined who you're going to marry. So the Gemara says, no, what's our concern? We're concerned that somebody else will daven harder, and then when they're going to daven, they're going to come before you. This guy, let's say Reuben, is going to want to marry Rachel, even though Shimon was destined for her, and he'll do so many prayers, and he's going to pray, that and this is a strange explanation, but the Miuchat Rashi says that he's going to pray that she dies so she doesn't marry somebody else. That's what he's going to pray. That's how he's going to daven. And Kihad Rava Shamila who Gavar Debai Rachmi Amar, because one time Rava heard that a man was praying and he said, Tisdamanli Puinisa, he said, he was saying, let me marry this such and such woman. Amar Loti Bai Rachmi Achi. If she's worthy for you, if she's supposed to marry you, she won't go to anybody else. Vilo kaparas b'Hashem, and if you're not going to do that, kafras b'Hashem. In the end, you're going to reject God's faith in God, because since she's not supposed to marry you, she's certainly not going to marry you. And you're going to say, that prayer doesn't help because you say I prayed and it didn't work. So therefore, don't pray for this specific girl to marry you. So afterwards, after a little bit of time, Rava heard the same man praying, and he's saying, either I'm going to die before her, or she should die and not marry anybody else. So he was praying for her to die because he was so much, quote unquote, in love with her. Unfortunately, we see this sometimes tragically with abuse cases, that the person is so infatuated with this psychosis that he wants to make sure that a woman doesn't marry anybody else. So that's what he was saying. He said, I warned you, don't pray like this. Don't do that. So therefore, the only solution is if you want to marry somebody, don't take any chances and ask her before somebody else gets a chance. Don't pray to God to stop it. Amarav Misham Rabbi Reuven ben Estrobli min Atar min Arabim min Ksuvim me Hashem Isha. We know that from the Tanakh we learned that God arranges a woman leish. That God arranges the woman to marry a man. Min Torah. How do we know from the Torah? Because it states it states in the Torah. Vayan Lavan u'Besuel vayomer me Hashem yatzah davar. Now Lavan and Besuel answered, and they said, God arranged this. And so therefore, this they were going to send Rebecca to marry Isaac. Because it says that when Shimshon took a Philistine woman, his father and mother didn't realize that Hashem had arranged that. It says in Mishlei, house and wealth. It's possible that person can get as an inheritance, but a wife that comes just so it's prepared from God. So once we say Rav Reuven ben Estrobli, saying something else from Amalei Masnisa Tana, what do we learn? So this is other statement. Also, it's unfortunately relevant in our world today. A person is not suspected of a sin, of a crime, unless he did it. If there's smoke, he did it. If he didn't do the whole thing, he did part of it. Here, believable. If he didn't do part of it, he tried to do it. If he didn't have in mind to do it, he saw others do it and he was happy. Gemara says, wait 1 second. We're not just going to accept this. Malasav Rabbi Yaakov, what about the fact that it states in 2 Kings that the sin of the 10 tribes is they accuse God of doing things that he didn't do. Gemara says, yeah, that was Hasam Hachasuda. There they weren't really accusing God. It was just, they were just trying to get, like be lahachas, like do it for spite. So the Gemara says, Tashma, it says, Vayikanu Moshe b'machane, that with respect to the dispute with Korach, it says that the people were jealous of Moses, Aaron, Kadosh Hashem, Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yitzchak Amar Melamech Ko Echad Ve'echad Kinu Isha Moshe. Every one of the Jewish people, those people in that rebellion, they warned their wives not to go near Moshe because he said he's an adulterer. Yeah, that too is Hasam Mishum Sinuda, but that was only out of hatred for Moses. So there are exceptions to this rule. Tashma, what about this? I'm Rabbi Yossi, Misha Choshino Sabadavar. He says, Rabbi Yossi says, I want to be with those people who were suspected of something and it wasn't true. They suspected me and it wasn't true. It's about what's we referring to? That he was accused of not helping poor people in the Gemara in Baba Basra Daf Yud. So some say that that's what it's a reference to. Kasha, Habakala the Pasik, Habakala the Pasik. It depends on the type of rumor. If it's a rumor that never ends, that persists, okay, then there's something there. But if the rumor that was there and it stopped, then it doesn't mean that there's any truth to it. Kala the Pasik at Kama. How long does the rumor have to keep going straight without it stopping in order to be concerned about it? Amar Abai, I'm really aim. He said, the woman who raised me, who Abai called his adopted mother his mother. He called it his mother because his biological mother died at birth. So Abai was raised, and this is one of the sources that somebody who's adopted, the Talmud considers them your mother. So that's what Abai says. I'm really aim dumi demasa. He said the rumors of a city, yomo palgan, that it's a day and a half. That if a bigger person is really suspicious, the rumor will last a day and a half. I guess in the internet that it's going to be different, but that's what they said in those days. That's where there's no pause in between of a pasuk beni beni. But if there's a break in the rumors, it's not true. It's only if it stops, but out of fear of a pasach machmasira. But if it stops out of fear, we don't say that it's considered like a broken rumor. And we don't say that a broken rumor is not true unless it doesn't sprout up again. But if it sprouts up again, we don't say it. And we only say that the rumors are true when this person who the rumors are about has no enemies. But if he has enemies, The enemies are the ones who made it. Okay, so anyway, we'll stop here. I'll be happy to address any questions if anybody wants to ask any questions.